So thank you very much, Dr. Christian Hirst. You are honorable guest of University of Exeter and Diplomatic Hub. Welcome here. You are the Minister, Consular, Political Economic, AUKUS at the Australian High Commission, London. We welcome you here. So first of all, Doctor, you know that in this world, the Indo-Pacific is a very unique idea that so many country coalitions are getting together, and there's a lot of debate. So what is Indo-Pacific? Please explain that.
Thank you, and look, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to see the beautiful campus and engage with your students and faculty. The Indo-Pacific is a misunderstood term in both international diplomatic circles, but also in some of the broader literature on foreign policy. For Australia, the Indo-Pacific is fundamentally about our geography. We are a country that faces both the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean. We look both to our east and to our west, and our major strategic partners, our major diplomatic interests are engaged in those two oceans. Whether it's Papua New Guinea, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's India, whether it's the United States, these are countries that are in the Indo-Pacific and part of our core interests. The Indo-Pacific also brings together the great economies, the dynamism of the Indian Ocean, of India, of Pakistan, of the Maldives, of Sri Lanka, of the east coast of Africa, and the really wonderful economic developments there, with the dynamism of Southeast Asia and the Pacific. And Australia doesn't just have a narrow view to the east or the west, we have an integrated view of our geographic world. So it's a geographic construct, but it's also an economic and a strategic construct.
Well, thank you very much for this wonderful explanation. So, Doctor, I will ask another question. So, how is the Australian relationship with the China? And what challenges do you see in the future in the diplomacy? Because there is now multipolar world in which we are living, and how much it is difficult to deal with more superpowers than a unilateral power that it was United States.
I think you're absolutely right. We are now in a period of international change. The international order is no longer a unipolar order, and that's a unsurprising and necessary change. China has grown economically at a rapid rate over the last 30 years, but so has India, so has Indonesia, so has Vietnam. It's a positive thing that many countries are developing, people are coming out of poverty, and that has led to a shift in international power. Australia's relationship with China, as you said, has been difficult in the last period. The current Australian government has put a big emphasis on stabilising that relationship, engaging where we can with China, but disagreeing where we must.
Thank you very much. Doctor, you belong to a country which was very famous since 19th century for innovative ideas and technology, and there's a very huge innovation the Australia has discovered, which play the amazing role. Suppose Wi-Fi, and there are other technology. The black box was discovered in Australia. So, in the future, when you are a partner with the USA, you are a partner with the UK, you are a partner with the Canada, how you will see this innovative and technological world and your role in that in a positive way, because you are a soft power, you are making a very good contribution in this world. So how do you see, and what are the challenges to that?
Yes, technology development, both disruptive technologies, transformative technologies, whether it's AI, quantum, hypersonics, machine learning. There's a whole range of new technologies which create enormous economic opportunity, and I think you're right that it's actually the research and development ecosystems that the US, the UK, Australia, Canada, but other places as well, India, China, there is great research in these new technologies happening around the world, and there's lots of connections between researchers, and I've had the pleasure today at the university to see some of the great collaborations between the University of Queensland and the University of Exeter on climate technologies and climate transition technologies. And I think what Australia has done well is been able to use our research community in a way that contributes to global good, to global public goods. And I think the next phase will be climate technologies, but we're also looking to make sure the rules and norms and standards around the use of artificial intelligence, quantum, means that these technologies are used to advance human good and are not used by malign actors to try and undermine the international system and contribute in a positive way to our world. So Australia is pleased to be part of the research phase of new technologies, but also the kind of governance around them as well.
Thank you. And Doctor, in this new area, new era when there is a lot of changes happening, what challenges you see for the diplomacy? Because when you will come to West and you will see diplomacy, this is a very developed idea. There are certain kind of standards which the people follow, diplomats follow, and their elected leaders are compelled to follow. But when you will go to other part of the world, it is not. There's a big gap in actual democracy and what is looking out to be democracy. So how this emergence of new powers will affect this democratic evolution, which is happening slowly and gradually in the third world countries?
Look, I think each country has their own pathway as a international actor, as a diplomatic actor. Australia, for a long time, was very close in diplomatic terms to the United Kingdom. Prior to the First World War, prior to the Second World War, Australia was very much, in some ways, we outsourced our foreign policy to the UK system. That's no longer there. We're a confident international actor now. We have a kind of a modern diplomatic service. And I think there are many developing countries who are rapidly finding their own voice, finding their own interests, and representing themselves on the world stage in ways that are consistent with their interests. But every country has their own separate development pathway, and as they build their capacity, they build their diplomatic influence.
Thank you. And how the Ukraine war has affected the Australian foreign policy and diplomacy, because you are soft power, and it is very difficult to navigate sometime in the era of war when the war are going on for the year and more than a year. So how its effect on what effect it's caused on your foreign policy?
Well, Australian people, the Australian government were outraged at the illegal, brutal invasion of Ukraine, sovereign country, by Putin's Russia. And it's been something that the Australian government has put a huge priority on. We have provided military support, both through training and through military equipment to Ukraine. We've provided diplomatic support. We've participated in the global sanctions regimes to isolate Russia, to punish Putin for the illegal invasion. We work with our partners to ensure those sanctions regimes are implemented fully. And we work with those countries who are not as convinced as we are that this is in their interests to isolate Russia, and try and persuade them of the value of supporting the United Nations Charter and the values contained within, particularly the support for sovereignty, state sovereignty, that this is a non-negotiable value. So Australian diplomacy has pivoted. We're working closely with the G7. Our Prime Minister will be at the G7 Plus meeting in Hiroshima, where this will come up as a priority. And it's changing Europe, it's changing the world. It's something that we're engaging with in a really serious way.
Thank you. And my next question is that, how do you see that in this time when we are passing through, what do you think about the climate challenges which need a lot of country involvement? Suppose Russia, China, because they are big countries, India, and a collaborative work for that. Without that, nobody could manage this crisis solely. So how do you see that?
Yes, your climate action needs to be international. We all have different contributions to the global emissions context, and it's important that larger emitters, developing countries like China and India, share ambitions to achieve net zero as early as we possibly can. Australia is committed to a net zero goal of 2050, like the UK. I think pushing for international ambition on climate targets is part of the challenge, and working collaboratively on new technologies, making sure our energy transition is both economically lucrative and good for the environment, that it's something that creates jobs and prosperity, which is, the evidence shows overwhelmingly it will, and that everyone sees it's in their interest to transition quickly to a clean energy future. And that's the work that's diplomatic work that is of a huge priority of the Australian government, and it's something that we undertake here in the United Kingdom with the UK government too.
Thank you. And my last question is that, Doctor, how do you see that? What was the most difficult moment of your career? Because we heard that President Kennedy has difficult moment when there was a Cuban Missile Crisis, and he was so stressed and under pressure at that time and he went through well. So what was the most difficult moment of your diplomatic career when you thought what I should do, what I should not do?
Well, I can't say I've had anything equivalent to the Cuban Missile Crisis to compare to. For me, a really challenging moment was when I was posted in New Delhi and the Australian government closed its borders to the world during the pandemic to protect Australians and stop the spread of the virus. At that time in India, there were a large number of Australian Indians who wanted to get home to Australia, wanted to get back to their families, and there was no opportunity for them to do so. So representing Australians overseas is the core job of a diplomat, and finding a way to look after those Australians who are stranded, essentially, in India, and help them get back to Australia when they could, without really knowing what the pandemic was going to look like. From month to month, it was unclear what the policies were going to be, what the virus was going to do, and there was a lot of COVID in India, and lots of people died in India from COVID. So that was as a diplomat who wants to help Australians and wants to contribute to international cooperation, that was tough.
And what is your advice for your students? They want to pursue a diplomatic career in the future, and what is your best advice for them?
So I think read a lot about the world, be interested in the world, don't have a narrow view of what you want to do and where you want to be, have a broad view of policy, how the world works, have your own worldview, what do you think matters, how do you want to shape the world around you, and write and communicate. Diplomacy is about communication, it's about persuading people, it's about expressing your national interest in a clear way, in a persuasive way. So read, write, and be interested in the world.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much for this interview.
Pleasure. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.